The Las Vegas Raiders are quietly orchestrating a massive, behind-the-scenes maneuver that will either catapult them straight to a Super Bowl parade or trigger an absolute disaster that haunts the franchise for the next 10 years. I am not kidding. We are standing on the edge of a sheer cliff, and the front office is getting ready to jump. Are we about to witness the ultimate team-building masterclass, or is this just going to be another classic silver and black heartbreak? Think about it logically. For years, the Las Vegas offense has felt like a massive puzzle that is missing its biggest, most important piece. They desperately need a true, terrifying number one wide receiver. We are talking about a pure alpha dog. A guy who steps onto the turf and instantly forces defensive coordinators into pure panic mode. The kind of weapon who commands double coverage on every single snap, which magically opens up the entire field for the rest of the passing attack to feast. Currently, the Raiders just do not have that guy on their roster. They need a heavy enforcer out wide, and they need one right now. Heading into the 2026 NFL Draft, everyone naturally assumes Las Vegas will just pick a speedy kid out of college to fix this glaring weakness. But let me tell you, a very real panic is setting in over at the team headquarters. What happens if all the elite receivers are already wiped off the draft board before the Raiders even get a chance to make their selection? That is a terrifying thought for any general manager. Because of this massive uncertainty, a completely insane backup plan is gaining serious momentum. It involves bringing in a proven, absolute monster of a human being. But wait until you hear who this mystery superstar actually is, and why his current team might just hand him over on a silver platter. Enter DK Metcalf. Right now, this physical freak of nature is catching passes for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but there is a massive hidden trapdoor in his current contract. On the surface, Metcalf looks completely locked in. But if you read the fine print, you will see something absolutely jaw-dropping. He has zero guaranteed money left on his deal from now until the year 2029. In the cutthroat business of the National Football League, zero guaranteed cash means you are completely expendable. It completely flips the leverage and changes the entire game. This wild contract situation is creating some major internal drama over in Pittsburgh. League insiders are heavily whispering that the Steelers might just walk away from their veteran star. Why pay a massive, multi-million-dollar salary to a guy who had a slightly bumpy season, when you can just draft a cheap, hungry rookie? The Steelers have a legendary track record of finding absolute gems at the wide receiver position in the middle rounds of the draft. They are basically a wideout factory. So, waving goodbye to Metcalf is not just a crazy rumor. It is a highly logical business move for a team trying to save cap space. Now, picture the sheer chaos if the Raiders swoop in. Instead of rolling the dice on an unproven college kid, Las Vegas instantly acquires a terrifying, established powerhouse. Rumor has it that a 2027 second-round pick might be enough to get the Steelers on the phone and finalize the trade. Yes, giving up a high draft pick is always tough. But for a guy built like a comic book superhero, it is an absolute masterclass move. Metcalf brings pure, unadulterated strength, blazing speed, and a bullying presence in the end zone. He literally dictates how opposing defenses line up before the ball is even snapped. And let us not forget what the Raiders already have in the building. Brock Bowers is an absolute stud at the tight end position. Even when the offensive scheme got messy in 2025, Bowers put up elite numbers and proved he is an incredibly reliable safety blanket. Combine a dominant tight end like Bowers with an explosive, towering freak like Metcalf, and you instantly create an unstoppable nightmare for the rest of the league. Good luck trying to cover both of those guys over the middle of the field. However, if the Las Vegas brass decides this blockbuster trade is just too expensive, their alternate plan is so incredibly risky it feels like a total betrayal of basic football logic. If the Las Vegas Raiders decide to pass on a massive trade for a proven superstar, they might pivot to a strategy that is going to completely divide this fan base right down the middle. Instead of buying a sure thing, they might gamble on a rough, unpolished piece of clay that has the potential to become a masterpiece. We are talking about Keon Coleman, who is currently sitting in a weird sort of limbo over with the Buffalo Bills. At first glance, trading for Keon Coleman does not give you that warm, fuzzy feeling of security. The Bills drafted him in the second round with massive expectations, but his time up in Buffalo has been an absolute rollercoaster ride. He has struggled badly to find a consistent rhythm. There have been loud whispers about his focus, his ability to adapt to the speed of the pro game, and a highly frustrating lack of week-to-week consistency. Sometimes, you even hear that his own coaches are scratching their heads wondering if he will ever truly figure it out. Who's to blame for this loss of potential in Buffalo? Drop a name below. But here is why this is such a fascinating, high-stakes gamble for Las Vegas. Keon Coleman is still incredibly young. He is only 22 years old. You simply cannot teach his raw physical traits, his massive catch radius, and his natural leaping ability. Deep down, he still possesses the core DNA of a dominant number one receiver. He just might need a drastic change of scenery. A new locker room, a little less intense media pressure, and a fresh playbook could be the exact recipe he needs to finally explode into a star player. When you look closely at the current Las Vegas depth chart, this crazy gamble starts to look a bit brilliant. The Raiders' receiving room is incredibly crowded but completely lacks a true, defining identity. No one is actively demanding the football on a regular basis. If Coleman walks into that building, he does not have to be the ultimate savior on day one. He can take a deep breath, find his footing, and earn his targets organically without the crushing weight of the world on his shoulders. The absolute best part about this wild scenario is the final price tag. Reports suggest the Buffalo Bills are so ready to move on that they might eagerly accept a simple 6th-round draft pick just to clear his locker. A 6th-round pick for a guy with a legitimate first-round ceiling is the pure definition of a low-risk, astronomical reward masterclass. However, you have to ask yourself if bringing in a struggling youngster will just add more negative chaos to a locker room that desperately craves peace and stability. But hold on, because none of these receiver moves actually matter without figuring out the most crucial, jaw-dropping asset the Raiders currently possess. Everything we just talked about regarding a DK Metcalf trade or a Keon Coleman gamble is entirely dependent on one giant, franchise-defining elephant in the room. We need to talk about the very first overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. The Las Vegas Raiders hold the golden ticket. They literally own the most valuable asset in the entire sport right now, and what they do with it changes the entire landscape of the league. For the past few months, the master plan seemed ridiculously simple. You take the draft card up to the podium and you confidently select Fernando Mendoza. The kid from Indiana is a proven national champion. He has the perfect quarterback build, a flawless winning mentality, and the exact leadership traits you want in the face of your franchise. Everyone assumed Mendoza was an absolute lock to wear silver and black for the next 15 years. But then, General Manager John Spytek dropped an absolute bombshell that sent shockwaves through every single front office in the league. Spytek publicly admitted that his phone is ringing off the hook with opposing teams desperate to trade up for that number one pick. And instead of hanging up the phone and ignoring them, Spytek is actually listening to the offers. He did not slam the door shut. That simple act of listening to trade packages changes absolutely everything. Trading the number one overall pick is not just a regular roster move. It is a monumental shift in team philosophy. If the Raiders keep the pick and draft Mendoza, their path is crystal clear. You bring in a rookie, let him learn the ropes, maybe even sit him behind a smart, seasoned veteran like Kirk Cousins for a few games, and build a slow, steady foundation. If they choose this patient path, they desperately need a reliable, veteran receiver like Metcalf to help the young quarterback succeed right out of the gate. A rookie quarterback needs a target he can trust blindly when the pocket collapses. But what if they trade that number one pick away? What if they execute a massive deal and acquire 3 or 4 premium first-round draft picks in return? That would allow them to completely rebuild the entire foundation of the roster overnight. They could draft offensive linemen, elite cornerbacks, and heavy-hitting linebackers all at once. In that specific scenario, taking a cheap, low-cost flyer on a guy like Keon Coleman makes perfect sense, because you are building for the long haul and saving your cash for other premium positions. Giving up the chance to draft a potential superstar quarterback like Fernando Mendoza is a terrifying thought. If he goes to another team and wins a bunch of MVP trophies, the Raiders' front office will look like an absolute disaster for the rest of football history. The fans would view it as an unfair betrayal. Every single move they make at the wide receiver position hinges completely on what they do with that very first draft pick. It is not just about picking random names out of a hat. This is about establishing a true, fearsome team identity. It is about deciding if they want to push all their chips to the middle of the table and win right this very second, or if they are meticulously plotting a long-term, calculated takeover of the dangerous AFC West. They have to face elite quarterbacks twice a year, so every single choice matters immensely. The draft is knocking loudly on the door, and the Las Vegas Raiders are holding all the winning cards. They are absolutely guaranteed to make a move that will shock the football world, anger a portion of the fans, delight others, and completely rewrite the future of the organization. The tension in the building is incredibly high, and the stakes have never been greater in recent memory. Do they mortgage their future for instant success, Or do they hoard draft picks and build a massive war chest? It is the ultimate football chess match, and the clock is ticking down to 0.